All right, so today we're gonna do exactly like the title explains. We're gonna make a sick metalcore tone just like this. In about 5 minutes. Now the video is going to be a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but you'll be able to follow along and dial this in about that amount of time. So today we are going to be using an amp sim, specifically the STL Tonality Josh Middleton plugin, because I still think this is a severely underrated plugin. It is by far my favorite for the 5150 style tones. It also has like a Mesa dual rec and then a Peavey XXX inside of it as well. So it's a very full featured amp suite, but we're sticking to the 5150 tones today because, you know, that's what I do. So when you start out, you want to go in with amp 1. That's the 5150 style amp. Crank up your gate if you haven't already. I usually have it around 53 dB to keep it pretty tight during breakdowns, you know, because metalcore. Then we go into the stomp box section first. You can use one of these two overdrives, and I'm going to show you the difference between both of them right now. So without either of them on, this is the tone that we've got. Obviously an extremely usable tone, right? But if we go ahead and turn on Overdrive 2, Overdrive 2 is a classic, you know, tube screamer style pedal. So usually what people would do is bring the drive down and the balance all the way up and the tone pretty close to all the way up. And this is what we end up with. And you can give it a little bit of drive if you want to. So if we crank the drive up to like 1 or 2, just to thicken up the signal a little bit. And it almost makes it a little bit less harsh. And now you can dime the tone on here as well. That's just gonna make it a little bit too harsh for the pickups that I'm using right now, which I should say that everybody's pickups will have different outputs, and so they'll affect the amp a little bit different. For instance, if you're using active pickups like Fishman or EMG, those are going to affect this input a little bit different. Thankfully, STL Tones has accommodated for that, and they do have the input listener and the input gain like adjustment down here as well. So you can adjust that to taste for your exact pickups. So let's turn off Overdrive 2. Let's listen to Overdrive 1. Now the way that I've dialed it in is I've got level all the way up, drive down, and then I've got the high pass at 6.7 and low pass at 1.6. I prefer that drive pedal because of the fact that it lets me do a high and low pass. So I can cut out some of those lows, allowing it to drive the amp a little bit different and a little bit more tight, but I'm also not having too much hair added to it because of that. So when we're dialing in an overdrive pedal, I want you to really listen for the chugs. That's where you're really going to notice the difference the most. So here's it without any overdrive. So it's kind of flubby, it's a little bit loose. That's the only way that I know to explain that. If we turn it back on. So if you listen to that with headphones on, you'll definitely notice a difference. I'm going to play it again right now and cycle between the overdrives being off and then Overdrive 1 on and then Overdrive 2 on. So that way you can hear the difference. So here's it with it off, and I'm just going to start and keep going. I'm just going to cut with the magic of video editing and you'll hear the differences. And as I mentioned before, I prefer Overdrive 1, so I'm leaving that one on. Now, if we go over to the amplifier section here, you'll notice I've got the gain pretty far down. The 5150 has gain for days. It does not need it to be pretty far up unless you want a very saturated tone, and there's certain styles of music that definitely cater to that. For a metalcore tight rhythm tone though, we want to bring that gain down. I've got it set to 1.9. Sometimes I go as low as 1.5 if I'm using a hotter set of pickups. A lot of people will tell you to scoop the mids. I leave them at the mid setting on here. It does sound good scooped. I just like mids in my tone. And the highs are left right at about noon as well. But let's go ahead and listen to the mids the way they are. Bring the mids down to like a scooped setting here. Forgot how to play guitar today, but what do you think? Does it sound better a little bit scooped, or does it sound better with the mids back up at around 5? I think it sounds better with them right about midway there. The post gain, that's your master volume. This amp sim responds very much like a real amp would. And so if you dime that post gain and bring your pre-gain down or your master output down, you're going to get, again, a very saturated but very flubby kind of signal going to it. And so I tend to have that down at around 2.5 to 3. I think I've got it set exactly at 2.5. Resonance is giving it a lot of like low end girth, and so I think it sounds better with that up higher, so at 7. Presence, now 5150s respond very weird to a presence knob. It doesn't really do much until it gets to 7, and then it's just too much. And so I have it just right before 7, and it sounds good to me because if we go over to the cabinet section here, I've got both of the microphones pretty close to the cone, and then I do have a low pass filter set at 13 on here, and then a low pass filter at about the same over here. The low pass filter helps to cut some of that high end hair out. I didn't do a high pass filter at all, besides it at like 10 hertz on these, just because of the fact that I don't want it cutting any other low end. If I'm gonna cut the low end further, I'm gonna do it on the next step or in the mix. So speaking of the next step, if we go over to the effects section here, we have just the equalizer pedal on. Obviously, I'm not using the delay or reverb. Not a lead player anyways. We're talking about a metalcore rhythm tone, okay? Just get over it. Now, when we go through these settings, there's a lot happening on here because this is replacing like a graphical EQ. And so we do have a high pass at 85 hertz to cut out a lot of those unnecessary lows. We do have a low pass filter at 11 kilohertz to get rid of those hairy highs. Then we go for a high shelf, a very aggressive high shelf in my opinion, 6.5 kilohertz, and we're doing a huge boost there, 7.9. That gives it that extra air in the frequency spectrum that I like to really just brighten up the tone. So if we turn off this equalizer pedal, here's the tone before. And if we turn on the equalizer pedal, so I will really quickly go through each of those settings because you can't see exactly what they are on the screen here. So again, we have that high shelf frequency set at 6.5 and that 7.9 dB of boost. Then we have the next frequency at 4 kilohertz, which a lot of people are usually cutting, but we're actually boosting it by 2 dB and a pretty narrow Q on here, so 2.1. A pretty wide Q, I should say. Then P2 frequency, we've got about 3.5 kilohertz, and then we're definitely pulling a little bit of that out. It's got a little bit of a boxy harshness to it. It's like a combination of high mids and a little bit of highs that it's pulling out there. And then one more frequency over here, 337 hertz. That's again a little bit of a boomy boxy area, and so it sounds kind of nice to boost though. And so we left that being boosted as well. And then again, high pass frequency at 85 hertz. Low shelf frequency at 86, and that is just a little bit of a boost. Because when we have the high pass frequency cutting out some of those lows, we don't want to lose them completely. So that low shelf helps to bring just a little bit of them back while it still has that slope cutting it. This is a trick that a lot of pro mixers will do with an actual EQ plugin after the fact. It's nice to be able to do this with an EQ pedal because you could do this with a real EQ pedal in the effects loop of a real amp if you wanted to. EQ pedals are a dime a dozen out there these days. They're cheap. You can get them and run them. I could use it with my Peavey Invective if I wanted to. I'm not going to. We're actually just working in the box today. So that's it. That's this tone. It's just very simple, very fun to play through. And that's only one of the 3 different amps that you can jam through on this plugin. Josh Middleton, if you don't know who he is, look him up. Go and check out Silosis because you're in for a damned treat when it comes to metalcore songs and tones. It's just so much good stuff that he's putting out. This plugin, I don't think there's enough people talking about it. I am not paid to talk about this. I am not sponsored by STL Tones. I paid for this plugin as well, a long time ago actually. And I'm loving it. It's a great plugin and it sounds sick. I think you should check it out. Make this tone. Let me down in the comments what plugin you want to see me make a metalcore tone with next. So, hope you all like this. If you do, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.